Let's take a look at the carriage and the various controls. The carriage, of course, is this whole assembly here that rides back and forth along the ways when you turn the carriage hand wheel, and that moves the tool back and forth this way. Then the cross slide and the associated cross slide hand wheel move the cross slide in and out perpendicular to the ways. And then on top we have the compound or compound slide, which moves at some angle depending on how it's set, and you can actually rotate this pretty much in a full circle to make angled cuts and for various other purposes such as thread cutting. So those are your three main controls. Then down below here we have the so-called half nut lever, and I'll explain why that's called that later, and the threading gauge, and both of these are used when cutting threads under power. But the half nut lever on this lathe is also used when you're using the lead screw turning under power for power feed. On higher end lathes, more expensive lathes, you typically have a lead screw that's used only for thread cutting and have a separate drive shaft that's used for feeding, just for other cutting operations. But on a low-cost lathe like this, the lead screw does double duty, serving both for thread cutting and for power feed. And for the type of work we typically do in the home shop, that's not much of a problem. On a high-end lathe, you want to preserve the accuracy of your lead screw for precision screw cutting, and consequently you don't want to use it when you're just driving under power. But on a low-cost lathe like this, there's a little bit of a compromise, but you're very unlikely, unless you work 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, to ever put enough wear on this to make a difference. So that's how that all works. But one thing I do want to check is to see what the actual calibrations on this lathe are. And as I've mentioned many times over the years, the mini lathes typically are calibrated in thousandths of an inch, as they are on this dial. But in almost all of them, the lead screws actually are cut to a metric pitch. So there's a very slight error, if you want to call it that, between the indicated movement of the carriage and of the cross slide and of the compound. When you use these divisions on here, what you get is not exactly what you see. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. We'll set up a dial indicator and check that. Well, here's our test setup. I've got the dial indicator touching up against the compound, and I've got it zeroed, and I've got the cross slide hand wheel zeroed. And if I now turn the cross slide hand wheel, you can see that the dial indicator advances or retracts as I retract the cross slide. So now let's make one full turn of the hand wheel, going by the calibrations on the hand wheel, and that's indicating 40 thousandths according to the divisions. And let's zoom in now so you can see. Looking at the dial indicator now, you may be able to see that we're just about a division or a little less than a division short of the 40 mark. So we've moved slightly less than 40 thousandths. So let's make another full turn of the hand wheel. We should be at 80, and you can see that we're actually like a thousandth of an inch short. And if we repeat that, we should next come to 120, and we're falling even farther behind. And once again, we should be at 160, and we're about 2.5 thousandths short. The reason for the confusion is that the lead screw actually is a 1 millimeter pitch thread, but the calibrations on the collar here indicate that it is 0.025 millimeters per division, which in fact is exactly correct. But it also states that each division is 0.001 inches, or 1/1000th of an inch, which is almost true but not quite. Let's take a closer look at the math. Now I made up a card here that I hope will explain what's going on. One division of the cross slide dial is 0.025 millimeters, and that's exact because the cross slide lead screw is 1 millimeter pitch. Now that's very close to, but not exactly, 1/1000th of an inch. And in fact, if you do the math, you'll find that it's actually 9.84 ten thousandths, so just short of a thousandth of an inch. Now, if over longer movements of the dial, for example 40 divisions, the cross slide advances by exactly 1.00 millimeters, which you would expect according to the dial to be 40 thousandths, but in fact is only 39.4 thousandths. So you lose about 6/10 of a thousandth or 6/10 thousandths over one full turn of the dial. And of course, if you made 10 full turns of the dial, it would be 10 times that amount, or about 6 thousandths. So the important thing to take away from this is that as long as you're only moving by small increments according to the dial, say 10 or 20 thousandths, the error is pretty much negligible. So as you're approaching your final desired diameter, stop the lathe and take a measurement with your digital caliper, and then only rely on the dial calibrations for the last 10 or 20 thousandths, and the error will be so small that it can be ignored. Let's take an example. I have this piece of aluminum chucked here, and I've taken an initial cleanup cut and measured it at 0.408. And let's say I want to take it down to 0.375. Now, another factor to be aware of is that when you advance the cross slide by a specified amount, let's say 5 thousandths, it will actually reduce the diameter of the workpiece by 10 thousandths. And that's true on most lathes, that the cross slide calibrations measure the advance of the cross slide, but the amount removed from the diameter of the workpiece is actually twice that amount. So if you wanted to remove 20 thousandths from the diameter of the workpiece, you would only advance the cross slide by 10 thousandths. So our workpiece currently is at 0.408. We want to end up at 0.375, so we need to remove 33 thousandths, and taking half of that, which is what we want to move, the number of divisions we want to move on the cross slide dial, is 16.5 thousandths. So let's go ahead and do that and see where we end up. Now, I don't want to take the whole 16.5 thousandths in a single cut, but let's say I take 15 thousandths, so I'll advance 10, 15, and then I'll make a final cleanup cut of 1.5 thousandths. So let's go ahead and take the cut. Now this is our so-called rough cut, and it will leave a slightly rough surface finish because we're taking a relatively deep cut. It's really not deep at all, but a little bit deeper than we want for the final cut. And now we'll withdraw the cross slide and back off, and I'll set it to our final depth of 16.5 thousandths according to the cross slide dial. Okay, so what we're hoping to see is a final diameter of 0.375, and let's check it with the dial caliper or digital caliper. And we're pretty close, we're a 0.5 thousandths over. The compound is attached to the cross slide, and the compound can be rotated. There's a set of screws that are hidden underneath here. In order to access them, you have to crank the compound all the way back to the extreme end of its travel to expose the adjustable screws. Now, this is a feature on the Mini Lathe that I particularly dislike. It's just very inconvenient, and when the compound is turned to an angle like this, the tailstock gets in the way, and it just makes it an awkward adjustment to have to make. And if the compound is tight enough to keep it from wobbling, which it needs to be, that makes this adjustment even more difficult. So once you've moved it all the way back, you can begin to see these two screws that are hidden underneath here, and then you can take a 5mm wrench and loosen those. And once you've loosened them, you can rotate the compound to whatever angle you like. And on the front here, there's a cast metal protractor that reads from 0 to 40 in both directions. So that's handy if you want to set a particular angle. For example, if you wanted to put a 5-degree bevel on something. I'm going to go ahead and set it to 15 degrees according to this protractor. And I've chosen it so that I can cut a bevel on the front of my workpiece here. So after I've got it tightened down, I'll go ahead and advance the compound back to get it lined up with the dovetails, cover up the exposed screws. Well, this is a kind of an awkward position in which you have to do this, and but that's how it's done. So now with that in place, we'll put the tool post back, and I'm going to clamp that down, and I'm ready to make my bevel cut. Now I want to stop the lead screw, so I'm going to put it into the neutral position. So I have to reach around behind the headstock there and move the control lever down. Now you can hear with the lead screw in the neutral position, you don't get all the gear noise. Now I can lock the carriage down using the half nut lever down here, and that serves to keep the carriage from moving back away from the work as I make my cut. And now I'll go ahead and start the motor. Now I'm going to advance the tool using the compound hand wheel. And as you can see, the result is that I get a beveled cut. Now I'll advance the tool using the cross slide, and then I'll make another cut using the compound hand wheel. Alright, so that's a good example of making a beveled or a short tapered cut using the compound. If you're new to the world of mini lathes, one question you might wonder about is what's the best angle to keep the compound set to for routine work? Now, of course, that varies depending on people's individual work style and the type of work they tend to do. But one trick I like to use sometimes is to keep the compound set parallel to the ways. And the reason I like that is that when it's in that position, the movement of the compound corresponds exactly to the reading on the dial. Whereas if it's at any other angle, the amount that it moves in towards the headstock is actually reduced because of the angle. But let's say I wanted to remove 7/1000ths from the end of this workpiece. I could first bring my tool up, and I've already done a facing cut, so I have a clean face on the end of the workpiece. And now I'll bring the tool up until it just touches the surface of the workpiece. Then I'll turn this adjustable collar here on the compound hand wheel until it reads 0. Now I have my 0 setting on the face of the work. And now I can withdraw the tool, and I'll advance the compound hand wheel till it reads 7/1000ths, and then I can go ahead and take my facing cut. And that removes 7/1000ths. Now keep in mind that the same variation that we talked about on the cross slide hand wheel also applies to the compound hand wheel, so there is that very small, less than 1% error. But again, over a range of a few thousandths, that can be ignored since it's so small. Next we'll look at the compound and cross slide gib adjustments, but I wanted to mention that I've switched to a new video camera that I hope will give a little bit better audio and video quality. So let's see how that works out. On the side of the compound there are 3 adjusting screws, and these are called the gib adjusting screws. And we'll take a look here at a cross slide, or a compound slide actually, from another mini lathe. And if we look on the underside of it here, you can see there's a female dovetail on each side. But on this side, which would normally be the left side of the compound, you can see that there's a metal strip here that's adjusted by these 3 screws. And that metal strip has sort of a diamond-shaped cross-section there that fits right into that groove. And as the pressure is applied from the gib adjusting screws, it tightens the dovetail. So that allows, these 3 screws allow you to compensate and make the dovetail tighter or looser to get the optimal fit, which will minimize any play in the dovetails. And also, over a period of years, as the machine wears in, you can adjust these inward a tiny amount, and that will compensate for any wear that takes place. So because of that, the machine will stay in close tolerances for a long time. So the gib strips are used to adjust the tightness of the compound and the cross slide periodically. And if they're too loose, you'll get vibration and chatter. There'll be some play in the dovetails, and when the forces from the cutting tool start to act on the compound, that looseness will create vibration. And it can show up as a kind of a groaning sound that we call chatter, or a vibration-like sound. Or it may just show up as a pattern on your work. Usually chatter is accompanied by sort of a geometric or repetitive pattern on the surface of your workpiece. So it's important to keep these properly adjusted, and I just recently posted a YouTube video that goes into quite a lot of detail about how to do that. Let's look at the cross slide, and we'll see that there's also a set of them on the side of the cross slide. When adjusting the gib for the cross slide, it's actually easier, and you can do a better job if you first remove the compound. So I've cranked the compound slide all the way back so I can access these 2 screws underneath, and then we'll remove those, and we can just lift the compound off of the cross slide. And over here on the right hand side of the cross slide are the 3 adjusting screws and their corresponding lock nuts that are used to adjust the gib on the cross slide.